Hello, United fans, and welcome to the Glory Glory Man United podcast on this Easter Sunday as we discuss Manchester United's performance against Brighton, or Brighton, what am I talking about? Brentford at the G-Tech Community Stadium last night. And we're also going to talk a little bit about Garth Southgate being linked with the manager's role at Manchester United, just to make things worse for United fans. Um, but first of all, United drew one each with Brentford last night and very lucky to draw the game. Almost stole it at the end, but in typical United fashion, couldn't see it out for just 3 minutes. We conceded 31 shots to the mighty Brentford, who'd only won two of the previous 18 games. Um, United themselves only had 11 shots. Brentford totally outplayed us from start to finish. And in my opinion, it was actually a worse performance than when we lost 4-0 in August 22 at that stadium. I believe that Brentford's expected goals was more last night than the 4-0, and United's expected goals was less than when they lost 4-0 at Brentford last season. That is how bad it was. How do you sum it up, Bruce? It was terrible, wasn't it?
Absolutely. The way the shots were raining down on us was absolutely disgusting.
And yeah, it was just so easy for them. Again, we come back to it all the time. The gaps between United's midfield and defence is like a yawning hippo's mouth. It is just unbelievable. The structure and the tactics are clearly an issue, but another major issue is the lack of desire, which was evident again last night. Certain individuals is going through the motions, and I've got to say I'm getting a bit fed up with the form of Bruno Fernandes and Rashford this season. Um, Once again, a shambolic display from both of them, and they don't get punished for these performances. They continually get picked. They continue to get picked in every single match, regardless of how they play. And I mean, and from a psychological point of view, you're just not going to be as motivated if you know you're going to be playing, and it doesn't matter how you perform. It's just basic psychology, and it's reflected in their performances. Um, Wan Bissaka came in for criticism from Peter Schmeichel for you know just jogging back, and he's a defender. Um, he might be a player who knows he's leaving in the summer, so he's kind of he's dropped off about 5 or 10%. Um, and yeah, Scott McTominay totally anonymous again in the center of the park. If he doesn't score, like you always say, if he doesn't score, he doesn't do anything. Um, yeah, it was just shambolic, wasn't it, Rush?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the thing. How many times have we talked about McTominay and the lack of what he offers in the middle of the park? Regarding Wan-Bissaka, I don't think playing on the left-hand side suited him at all, and he looked visibly uncomfortable. There was one challenge in particular where you could kind of tell in his body movement and him trying to get his bearings, it was just off. Like, because if it was on the right hand side, I reckon he would have done his typical scoot challenge and got to it. But you could tell that was a bit of an adjustment for him. I'm not actually sure why he was on the left and not the right hand side, as
I think
Dallo can fit there.
I think Ten Hag has settled on Dallo at right back and doesn't want to take him out of that position.
Mm,
Uh, he thinks that he can get the most out of Dallo down that side. Clearly, he's a player that he rates very highly, um, and doesn't want to disrupt that. So Wan Bissaka is playing at left back, and we play the majority of the season without a left-footed left back, which is it severely hampers the team in both defensively and offensively. Um, and it's really stunted us. We don't have those overlapping runs down that side, and obviously, like you say, defending with your wrong foot is quite challenging as well.
yep.
Um, and Luke Shaw is not going to be back until the last couple of games of the season at the very best. Last year's season's over clearly. So yeah, it's been a total disaster, and no surprise that the word is that United are going to sign a left back in the summer, regardless of who stays or who goes. But United, look at this way: the forwards again had a really bad night. Um, Rashford had one shot on goal. Hoyland had one shot on goal. Garnacho had no shots on goal. We're just utterly toothless, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. I was talking to a friend yesterday during the game about Rashford, and he had noticed how poor Rashford was. And the shocking thing is that it didn't surprise me. I just told him, I was like, listen, this is pretty much what we've become used to now. Now it's gotten to the stage where when he does something out of the blue, we're pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, there is a section of the fan base, and I've had some of them on the show, who they just want to praise Rashford when he does well, but
Yeah.
avoid criticizing him when he doesn't.
Hmm.
And they try to deny that this season he has looked disinterested. They try to say that's not the case. But my eyes are not deceiving me. And last night was another one of those displays where he looks like he simply just does not care or doesn't want to be there. And he was hooked again. And you know, lucky to stay on as long as he did. But he's not the only culprit. Bruno Fernandes has been absolutely horrendous this season. You take out those winning goals against Fulham and Burnley, penalties that he scored, he's done nothing. He's been, he's a world away from the Bruno that we saw in 2020 and 2021, isn't he? He's completely unrecognizable as a United fan.
Definitely. I'll tell you what, on the subject of Bruno though, the only silver lining yesterday, the only little bit of positivity is the man who came on in midfield and got us the goal, Mason Mount. We've been wanting to see him in action all season, really, and hopefully that'll be the little spark that kickstarts the rest of his season.
Yes, I was so pleased for him when he scored, and I thought that would probably be the winning goal. And it was such a well taken finish with his left foot. And
Absolutely. Look at the positioning as well as the finish, and yeah, I would like to see him get a run out in that 10.
yeah, nice ball from Casemiro. Brilliant first touch to set himself up for the shot, and then he just put it right into the corner. And he's finally arrived. Okay, we didn't get the points after he scored in the 96th minute and to put us 1-0 up, which is a disgrace in itself. But this is hopefully the beginning of Mason Mount's Manchester United career. Um, and it's been a long time coming, and I felt so sorry for him because he spent most of the season on the treatment table. But hopefully, this is the start of something. But he needs to have a clear run now without injuries. I don't want to see him get injured again, at least until the middle of next season or something like that. And even if he does get injured, it's only for a short period. Most people get injured at some point. I think there's only been 3 United players in the entire squad who've not been injured this season. But Mason Mount needs a sustained period now of no injuries, to really kickstart his United career. But that was a superbly taken goal last night, and hopefully he can build on that. Now, here's what I propose for the Chelsea game coming up on Thursday night, and it's very very unlikely, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think that Rashford and Bruno should drop out, and Ahmad Diallo, who will be back from suspension, and
Mm.
Mason Mount to start the game instead. But I do not believe that the Ten Hag will ever drop Rashford and Bruno, regardless of how they play. How do you see it, Brush?
Yeah, just as you described, unfortunately. If we're going on form, then absolutely those are the changes that should happen. But can I see that happening under Ten Hag? No, no. And also the lack of chances we created for Hoyland was an absolute disgrace. Uh, just in comparison yesterday in the match, when I was looking at the chances that Ivan Tony had that he missed, and we're talking, 3 and 4 and 5, and Hoyland was working on absolute scraps. I feel so bad for him as well, just totally isolated. I think he might have had one chance yesterday.
Hmm. Yeah, unfortunately, he was slipping as he had the shot, and
Yeah,
it was the keeper was able to save it. But yeah, I noticed a number of occasions where the ball is played to him with his back to goal, and he's
Hmm.
just being hounded by several defenders, and he's nowhere to go. Yeah, like yeah, anytime Rashford found him, he had four men around him, and he just had nowhere to go. He just and yeah, I think every time the ball was played to him, like around about the center of the pitch, there was always somebody up his back, and he just um yeah, he's feeding off scraps. There's not many crosses coming in, not many pullbacks coming in for him to get on the end of. He's just you know United against Brentford. Our United's number nine really should be having three or four clear cut chances and should be in possession of the ball. You know, probably over 50 times, but that was not the case. He wasn't. He was barely in the game at all, and it wasn't his fault. Um, I thought when the first half was as bad as what it was, that it couldn't possibly be as bad as that in the second half. The players, he'll make a few changes. I couldn't believe, by the way, at half time, that the only change he made was an enforced change because Varane got injured once again, and Harry Maguire came on. Like that first half performance warranted about three or four changes at halftime. But we've talked about that with Ten Hag before. But yeah, the second half performance was equally as bad, if not worse. I just couldn't believe the amount of shots on goal. I mean, they must have hit the woodwork about three or four times. Onana had to make a few important saves. One of them in particular was a fabulous save, wasn't it? A big, strong
Yeah,
right hand.
great
Um,
save, great save.
uh, he just had one wee moment where he spilled one quite late on in the game. But other than that, I thought he was quite solid. Uh,
Hmm.
and you know, United was so bad last night that you'd be struggling to pick a man of the match from United's point of view. But if you had to pick anyone, it would have to be Onana, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, definitely the busier of the two. Fleck and Bar about one or two shots. Had a pretty easy night.
Yeah. It was the number 33 for Brentford who had that effort where Onana made the brilliant save. He's a very hard name to pronounce. Um, Yarmolik or something. I don't know. Some of the Do you know how embarrassing this is? That I've got to say that the majority of that Brentford team I've never heard of them, and yet they were playing us off the pitch. And the commentator kept going back to how expensive United's bench was in comparison to Brentford's. But I do have to say, Ivan Toney was brilliant last night. I have to say. But see their equaliser. That was just a big up and under, and Tony just allowed to take it down, control it, and then
Yep,
pass it into the middle for a tap in.
yep.
Absolutely
And
scandalous.
I'll tell you, what, I have to credit him for that as well. The role he played in the assist for that goal, because having missed the amount of chances and stuff that he did, it's very easy in that situation to be frustrated and to let your head drop. And he stayed very cool, calm, and collected and composed. Did very well to hold up the ball and stay on his feet and make that pass. At first glance, it looks very simple as well, but yeah. So, from our point of view, we were still celebrating our goal, weren't we? So shell shocked. Um, I mean, it would have absolutely been a smash and grab had we got the 3 points. I don't think we've deserved it in reflection. Um, but yeah, but once you do take the lead in that manner, it's always horrible to lose it.
Yeah, it feels like a defeat.
Yeah,
I Because we've been bitten so many times as United fans, been let down so many times that when Mason Mount had scored at 90 plus six, I was looking at what had been added on. And it was 90 plus nine, and I was thinking there's still time here. There's still time. We haven't won this game yet, and unfortunately, I was proved right. Even against Liverpool, where Ahmad scored obviously very late on, the
yep.
referee played on for another 3 minutes, and we were down to 10 men. I was getting massive anxiety in that situation as well, but thankfully we get over the line there. But not last night. The thing was what I said, as brilliant as the Liverpool win in the FA Cup was, we had to back that up by beating Brentford in the league and not reverting back to type as we did. the, the way it looks to me is if they got up for a big cup tie against Liverpool
Yep.
because it's their only chance of winning the trophy this season, and then last night they just couldn't be bothered again. And it's very, very disappointing. And our hopes of finishing top four are completely over now, in my opinion. How do you see it, Brush?
Yeah, it's very difficult. Very difficult. I don't know how you overcome not just one but two teams in the battle for fourth. Especially when you look at the fact that we've not really been able to go on a run, and to give ourselves the best chance, you pretty much have to win the remaining games. And I think what in the next two we've got Chelsea, Liverpool, um,
Yeah,
Arsenal still to come as well. So yeah, it's very difficult. Very difficult.
we are not going to win all those games. I mean,
Nope.
if we're not going to beat Brentford, we're not going to beat, Liverpool and Arsenal and Chelsea and all the rest of the tough games that are to come. I've totally given up now on. I don't even think we'll finish fifth, to be honest. I don't see a situation where we can win enough games to overtake Villa and Spurs, or even one of them.
Yeah,
I've,
that's the thing. You're relying on two other teams to drop enough points. But whilst that happens, you also need to make sure you go on a winning run. So yeah, there's too
yeah,
many variables for me.
and obviously Spurs won this weekend as well. Um,
Yeah, they were quite fortunate to beat Luton, but they did win.
yeah, 2-1 in the end. I think it was deflected goal from Song Young Min.
Yep.
Um, so I just want to come to some of these comments from Simon here, who's a Manchester City supporter. Um, I'll say this: there will be a lot of changes within United as a club before we kick off next season. Not being funny, but be grateful with the point. Yeah, absolutely. United may be unrecognisable next season. He says, as a blue, I will be honest, United will be back. Give Rashford his passport and drive him to the airport destination. Saudi, he says. If Mount gets another serious injury, he's gone. Um, do you want me to tell you why he won't drop Rashford? Because he earns the most money, but he's not worth it. Okay, and yeah, that is an interesting point because the way I see it is that last season Ten Hag had no issue with criticizing the players in public and during if we had a bad defeat or whatever or people weren't playing well. This season he's doing what a lot of the previous managers did. Whenever we clearly witnessed United playing badly, he's telling the press that they played well and they were unlucky. Um, and I feel that he's afraid now to. He's fallen out with a number of players. Some are still there, some have left, and he's afraid now. Like Rashford and Bruno are probably the most senior players in the squad. Two of the highest earners, and he didn't. They're not his signings, and he's probably in a position where he's afraid now to fall out with them. By dropping them, he could potentially lose them, and in that situation, then his position could become untenable. If he loses two senior players, so this is why I feel that he plays them no matter what, and it's not a great position to be in as a manager. Now it's just a theory of mine. People might not agree with that, but what do you think, Brush?
Yeah, to a certain degree. Also, he may also feel like there's not adequate cover. So now with Mason Mount coming back, I think he's got a decision to make because that is genuine competition now for Bruno, especially with his lack of form. With Rashford, I just don't think he fancies Ahmad. We had the same problem with
Palestri.
Pelestri before him. Yep, yep. He was seeing similar sort of minutes or lack thereof. So yeah, I think we're just forced into this thing where he just doesn't see any viable alternatives. So we're just stuck with what we see.
Yeah,
And I think
uh,
the senior players know as well, Carl, that I think they feel that way as well. So they think even if they do get dropped, I think they know that it will only be for one game at most. You know?
Yeah, and I just think the manager's in a very weak position right now, and the
Hmm.
senior players probably know that as well. Um, but even if you don't like intend to drop off, or you know drop off 5% or 10% in terms of your motivation, it would naturally happen if you're guaranteed your spot every single week. That's what it happens to everybody. Like we've talked about Luke Shaw in the past, he played his best football whenever he had competition for his place, and this is what I feel is happening to Rashford and Bruno right now. They know they're going to play every game regardless of how they play, so it's affecting their performances. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised uh, if Mount continues to play well in the substitute appearances. I can see the manager taking a cop out like he's done before and put Mount into the team, but not take out Bruno. He put Bruno in a different position or something like that. Um, if you go on last night's starting 11, I can see a situation where he takes McTominay out and puts Mason Mount in, and obviously that structure of midfield that was a huge issue earlier in the season. It is now
Hmm.
as well. Regardless if he plays in midfield, there's a structural problem, uh, and the manager hasn't solved that. You think back to the first game of the season against Wolves, how chaotic it was, and the gaps in midfield.
Oh, and Cunha absolutely ran through that midfield.
Yeah, the lack of balance in midfield.
Yep.
Nothing's changed.
No.
You know, and even if I I I expect Casemiro to come back into the team against Chelsea, and even in that scenario,
And I'll tell you what, there's no excuse really because these players they've got one game a week now.
yeah, I do feel like last night's midfield, and we seen it against Liverpool, was a chaotic game. It was just a freak show of a match, where we were able to win the
Listen,
game.
it's a cup tie. Emotions are high. It's against them lot. It's at Old Trafford, and when we look back on it, it's not like there was like a tactical masterclass in that game either. There was definitely elements of luck.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, in extra time we had five forwards on the pitch and two defenders. It was just
Yep.
madness. And Liverpool got sucked into the chaos because they threw everybody forward for the corner at the end and left themselves in a 2v1 situation, on the counter attack. So it was just a chaotic game of football. But last night was a return to normality, and United's midfield was badly exposed. I mean, McTominay's only weapon is getting into the opposition's box and scoring a goal, and so he doesn't offer any balance in midfield. Um, it leaves massive gaps. And Bruno obviously is a number 10, and McTominay gets up high, and then Menu is left, you know, defending on his own, and it just takes one pass to take out United's entire midfield, and then the back four are under pressure. And this has just been a constant theme all season, and it has not been solved. And you know, playing Casemiro, Mount, and Bruno as midfield is just going to be more of the same. It's not. It doesn't offer balance at all, and
Definitely. And I think long term we've got an issue as well because when we look at the kind of player Mainu is, I think he could play a bit further up the field than Ian.
yeah, I think he's so good that he could play in a variety of positions in midfield. He could be a holding midfielder. He could be a number 10, or even in between. He's kind of the way he dribbles. He reminds me of an Iniesta, actually.
Mm,
Um, Yet at United at the moment, he's been playing in a number 6 role. Um, I expect he'll be playing alongside Casemiro again on Thursday night, and Bruno at number 10. But even that setup hasn't been perfect either. Um, I think there's issues with Casemiro now that he's getting on a bit in age and looks off the pace in the Premier League. It probably would have been better for his career if he played in the Premier League in his 20s and then went to La Liga in his 30s, but he's done it the wrong way around.
definitely. If it was the other way around, I think yeah, that would have you would have been able to get away with that.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be here beyond the end of the season, especially as You know, I know Jim Radcliffe has said that he'll be delegating the decisions to the new employees that haven't started yet. They're Ashworth and Omar Barada, but the fact that Radcliffe was openly a critic of the Casemiro signing, given his age and the money that it costs and the wages, I don't envisage that being a type of sign that we'll make from here on in. And even Radcliffe is said publicly that he wouldn't entertain signing Mbappe, but what he wants to do is find the next Mbappe, on the cheap, which is what United will be searching for. So I actually agree with that. I don't think United should spend their entire budget on a player like Mbappe, who we know practically runs PSG. He's probably the director, manager, and player all at the same time, and is paid, eye-watering sums, and is a massive ego. He- He's I wouldn't, all those things factored in. I probably wouldn't sign him. I would be looking for the next hidden gem, and I agree with Radcliffe on that. What about you, Brush?
Yeah, definitely. I echo those sentiments. I've been calling for structure and proper planning for years. And what he said there, I think that pretty much sums that up. Um, I'm not sure if he's against big money signings altogether. I doubt that's the case, but I think he was just highlighting the need for sensibility and to plan. Anyone can just go and splurge money on the best talents, uh, but that doesn't always bode well for the rest of the team.
Yeah, and I think there's a possibility that these astronomical sums in the transfer market may be a thing of the past now, with their profitability and sustainability rules and FAP and all that.
Yes,
Those type of Neymar, Mbappe, Coutinho, Dembele transfer fees, we might not see that ever again now. Um, I think,
hopefully not. But then we say this all the time, don't we? Like even from childhood onwards, like uh, the fees in football have steadily risen, like irrespective of what's happening in larger society, irrespective of financial crashes and whatnot.
yeah, but at the moment it's definitely stalled. If you look at the January transfer market, what even happened there? Nothing.
Yeah, yeah, but it's about time that that kind of thing happened and things started to level out a bit. It was getting utterly ridiculous, wasn't it? And we always have to keep in mind that um, breaking the transfer record sets precedent, and the deals that really set precedent was the Neymar one, which they just met the release clause. It wasn't even a negotiated fee. It was utterly ridiculous.
Yeah, and obviously hasn't been worth it from their point of view because they haven't even won a single Champions League title.
No,
Um, I have said that not one of the Brentford player, no, a lot of the Brentford players were unrecognisable to me. Um, but one player who came off the bench who I knew already, and he's a very impressive player, is Brian Mbeumo. Maybe you can pronounce it better. Um,
yeah, and Burma before he got injured as
Mbeumo, yeah.
well. Yeah, before he got injured as well, he was quite a lively player. In Ivan Tony's absence, especially earlier in the season, he was the guy that was really involved with the goals and assists. Him and Wisa.
Yeah, he's one of those players that when I watch Match of the Day catches my eye.
Yeah, yeah, he
But
causes
yeah,
problems, doesn't he? Yeah.
Brandon Mbeumo, yeah. I think he hit the bar last night as well, didn't he? With a, was it a
Yep.
lob? Yeah. Yeah. They have a few decent players, but a lot of these they're still championship quality players. To be fair, another player that stood out last night was Kane Lewis Potter. He's the left back. I think he's very young, isn't he? He's only 18 or something, isn't he? Yeah, he looks like a very good prospect.
Yep.
But I mean, they've got Nathan Collins in their team, and he's a very average Republic of Ireland international, as I can tell everyone. So that's the type of opposition that United were playing against, and they looked very much second best. And United weren't even second best last night; they were third best. They were absolutely blown away by Brentford. Now, how they didn't win that game 4-5 nil is beyond me. Uh, yeah, it's just. where do we even go from here with this team? I feel as if whether you support Ten Hag or not, that he's going to pay the price for this. He's going to be the fall guy. But e- even if that happens, I also think a lot of these players have to go as well. You know, we Ten Hag is still operating with Solskjaer signings, Mourinho signings, even Van Gaal signings. That is just ridiculous. And a lot of these great survivors need to be moved on this summer. I feel obviously not everybody's going to be cleared out in one window, but what I'm hoping for is after 3 windows from now, I want this squad to have a very different look about it. What do you think, Rush?
It's an interesting one. Regards to having players from previous management regimes. I mean, if we get into the cycle of having just a manager for sort of 2-ish years and then getting rid of them, then you're always going to have leftovers from prior regimes. Um, the thing that we have really lacked is obviously the structure. So that's what I'm looking forward to seeing, the changes that Ineos want to make come summertime. It's just also up in the air at the moment, isn't it? I'd like a better idea of what our budget is and, the kind of list that they're drawing up of people, but we're just going to have to wait and see what happens. Because at this moment in time, like you say, I don't even know if uh, if they want to keep the manager around. So there's so many things to decide on. In terms of from now to the end of the season, I think obviously, the FA Cup, it's imperative that we put in a good showing and at least try and get to the final again. And if we could correct last year's wrongs, then that would be brilliant. In terms of the league, I'm not really holding out hope. Um, you just want to see some sort of consistency. Oh, another person we didn't mention as of yet. It was lovely to see Leach back on the football pitch where he belongs.
Yeah, absolutely. But looked a wee bit off the pace, lacking match fitness.
Yeah,
Look
yeah,
at
and that I expected that, to be honest. I think the last time as well, we rushed him back from injury. So it's just about getting those minutes in, getting his fitness back up.
Yeah, he played a really poor ball. He tried to play a ball over Ivan Tony's head, and he ended up kicking it straight to Tony, and then led to a chance for Brentford. And then obviously at the end, he was turned by Tony's footwork.
Yep,
Um, but we just put that down to his lack of match sharpness, really, which was evident. But hopefully we'll see him back match fit and starting games very soon. And obviously, I want him to have a sustained period of no injuries now. That's absolutely imperative. Um,
definitely.
we need Luke Shaw there left back, to be honest, but that's not going to happen at least until the end of May, which is and yeah, we need to sign a left back in the summer for sure because you just can't. We've operated for maybe 3 quarters of the season so far without a left back. You got to have certain
It's
sympathy with the manager in that situation.
it's ridiculous. And then we had a guy on loan who then they cut short the loan. I know he's not brilliant, but just the decision baffled me.
Yeah, but one thing I will say is that Regulon didn't play last night because he's
He was
suspended
he had a red card, yeah, in the last game.
against Burnley, wasn't it? He was sent off quite
Yeah,
early on in
yeah,
the game for he was the last man, and he took out the guy at the back post. So he had never rated him as a defender. So I'm not.
yeah.
I know we want to have a left-footed body at left back, but that's all Reglon really is. He's just not
Yeah,
good
pretty
enough in
much. I'll
Manchester.
tell you what, it was probably a blessing for Brentford as well because it meant that Lewis Porter could play.
Yeah, like I just said, he looks like an impressive young lad.
Yeah,
Because they lost their first choice left back to a serious injury, didn't they? We were actually linked with him at one stage. But yeah, if you watch last night's game and you were told that one of the teams are in sixth and one of the teams are in 15th, you wouldn't have believed that United were the team in sixth, like, would you?
you really wouldn't. Honestly, like, yeah. If we weren't fans of the club, like, I struggled to watch the game yesterday. It was that bad. The performance was bad. If it wasn't our team, I wouldn't have watched. If we were neutrals, if it was any other game, I would have switched over the channels. I would have done something else because it was painful watching that.
Yeah, and I felt as if we were playing against it like You know what Brentford reminded me of? An Irish league team with long balls and long throws, good corners, trying to score from set pieces, and just very kind of Sam Allardyce football. And we couldn't cope with it.
Yeah,
It was just embarrassing. It obviously was a lack of midfield structure, a lack of tactics, and obviously so many substandard players in our squad still. But the main thing was a lack of desire. Last night was evident. Even Dion Dublin was mentioning it at half time about players not running back. He said that he was obviously once a United player, and running back was just a given, and to not do that is unforgivable. Uh, and you've got pundits now regularly calling out Marcus Rashford. Even Rooney was doing it. Shearer, Dion Dublin, just his body language just stinks. Uh, and like, his fanboys don't like you saying this because they say that you're picking on him and we're trying to make out as if every defeat or draw is his fault. But I'm not. I just know that he has got so much more. Like he scored 30 goals last season. That was him at his very best, and the drop off has just been enormous. And it's just knowing what he's capable of is the most frustrating part. But he's just not showing any desire this season at all. Just looks like a guy who doesn't want to be there. And maybe there has been things that have gone on behind the scenes or things in his personal life that we're not privy to. Um, and I understand, that he's had problems with the hierarchy at Manchester United, and maybe a clean break from the club, maybe the best thing for him on Manchester United. I know people don't like to see that because he came through the academy. He's been at the club from a very young age, but sometimes that's just the best scenario for both parties. But I still lean towards that they will keep him because you know the sense that I'm getting from Ineos is I'm not saying that they're going to sign that all the signings are going to be British. Uh, but I am getting this Brexity feeling about Ineos that that we keep getting linked to British players, British
English coaches.
managers. Yeah. So I don't see a scenario where they're going to start selling off homegrown talent. So I think that Rashford will be given another chance next season. How do you see it, Brush?
Yeah, so do I at this stage. Because of who he is, the wages he's on, and like you say, it's that homegrown thing as well, isn't it? I think it'll buy himself at least another year. Um, but yeah, if he continues like this, then that's something that needs to be looked at.
If he plays with this kind of attitude next season, I'm going to be tearing my hair out.
The only thing, and this isn't really a scientific thing, but looking at his record, we know that roughly he has one good season followed by one bad season. So my only hope is that he gets it out of his system in the next couple of games, and we see a new Marcus Rashford in September.
Yeah. Next season he's due a good one. Yeah, because
Yeah, yeah,
swings and roundabouts. Yeah, yeah. He went from 5 goals to 30. Was it only 8 so far? I think this season. So next
yeah.
season it should be a 25 to 30 goal season then. Um,
Hopefully.
yeah. Um. So Christian Eriksen didn't come on last night again, and I've heard rumors that he's very unhappy with his lack of playing time. I think he'll be moved on in the summer.
Oh, he's definitely off in summer.
Yeah, a pity. Another player that we got too late in his career.
Yep.
Hello, he has had some wonderful moments. I know, and quite recently as well. See in the Liverpool FA Cup match where Rashford had the chance at the end of normal time.
Hmm.
Beautiful ball that was from Ericsson over the top to play him in. I think what saved Rash's blushes there was the fact that I think he would have been offside anyway. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, that would have been tough to take if we thought we'd won it in normal time and then the VAR ruled it out. But yeah,
definitely.
um, yeah, I think even in the games where Rashford has scored in 2024, the goals have masked really poor performances. Man City been a prime example. Wonderful goal, but he was absolutely shite after that. Um,
It just, yeah. I mean, again, it just, yeah, slowly started to fade, didn't he? And there was another chance where he got, well, he fell over. He fell over when he looked as if he was through. Uh,
Yeah, against Wolves, he scored very early on in the game and then did nothing after that. Yeah, it's just
yeah. Again, this is nothing new with Rashford. Like in the past, we've seen that as well, where he's had poor overall games, but he's popped up. Like when we played PSG at Old Trafford. I don't think he was spectacular in any sense, but he popped up with a goal, and then people forget about everything else.
yeah. The problem is when you only thing that you contribute is goals. Whenever you don't score, then you're going to be heavily criticised, especially when you're not really working that
Absolutely,
hard.
especially when you're not tracking and doing all the other things that you should be doing.
Yeah, we all know that Ronaldo didn't like to do much work off the ball, but when you're
Mm,
scoring hat tricks, nobody cares. you know.
hmm
But Rashford just hadn't scored enough goals this season to mask the fact that he is just not doing anything when United are not in possession. I mean, the worst incident of that this season that I saw was when Ross Barkley just went past him like he was a ghost, and he just kind of done a half a jog to get after Barkley. It was just he wasn't even pretending to try in that case. It was embarrassing. I remember I was watching it at the time and I couldn't believe it, and then it was obviously being shared quite a lot on social media. I've never seen such a lack of effort before. And when we were defending a 2-1 lead quite late in the game as well, there's something badly wrong there. Yeah, some people have said to me that Rashford has never really tracked back. I don't. That's not the case. I don't agree with that. This season, I'm not saying he was the hardest working player in the Premier League or anything at one stage, but there's been a clear drop off in his work rate, and the body language has mirrored Martial this season at times. I always come back to that Newcastle game where they both were hooked midway through the second half because they were both as bad as each other. How bad is it that Rashford is mirroring Anthony Martial in terms of his body language and his work rate? That's exactly is what he's looked like this season. Um, and because of them two were so bad at St James's Park, we were effectively playing with 9 men. We actually nearly stole a draw in that game as well. I think Harry Maguire had the ball in the back of the net in stoppage time, but it was ruled out for a slight offside. Got away with one last night, so we did as well. There was a very touch and go. That was a wonderful finish from Ivan Tony from that cross on the left hand side, and he slid in and put the ball into the corner past Onana, and obviously it was Stuart Atwell in the VAR room. He took about 5 minutes to decide whether it was offside or not, and
Yeah, yeah. And I'll tell you
eventually,
what, his performance yesterday, he probably deserved the goal. To be fair.
yeah, there was one. Wasn't there an attempted lob over Onana as well? I think it might just hit the top of the
Hmm
net. Um, yeah, but he's actually people talk about his goals and how good he is in the air, how good he is at taking penalties, but he has lovely feet as well, doesn't he? He can dribble past players. Um,
He can. Good vision, good strength as well. The hold up play is great.
the biggest compliment I could pay to him is that he could start for any team in the Premier League and he wouldn't look out of place. Like there's no team in the Premier League wouldn't like to have him in their squad.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting summer because obviously his contract's running down as well. He's only got a year left, so this summer's, Brentford have to cash in basically.
Yeah, yeah, but it's going to be very, very difficult for them to replace him. He was once
Yeah.
at Peterborough United, wasn't he? So
hmm
he's made a quite a meteoric rise, and now he's probably going to be going to the Euros as well. I would have thought. Do you know what? Ollie Watkins obviously scored a bucket loads of goals this season. He's obviously played a lot more football than Ivan Tony because of the suspension that Tony has had. But looking at those England internationals, Tony looks like a more valuable asset to England than what Watkins does. But yeah, they both got an opportunity in those two friendlies because Kane was unavailable. But I imagine that if England are behind or they're drawing a game in the Euros and they need a goal, I think it'll be Tony that he looks to rather than Watkins. That's just my opinion. Um, so I'm just going to do some player ratings, but just before I do, I have to mention the performance of Victor Lindelof. It was absolutely abysmal last night again, and looking way off the pace. When see, is he the worst one-on-one defender in the Premier League? Oh no, he actually nearly scored a couple of own goals as well. You might look at that from another point of view and say they were good interventions that stopped certain goals, but other than that, whenever a through ball is played on the halfway line and he's in a sprint with a forward, he's going to lose that sprint. And look how easily he's turned. Last night, I think he was turned by Tony, who had a left-footed shot aiming for the far corner. I think it just missed the target. And then, if you remember, Phil Foden did the same thing to him for Man City's first goal. Just turned him and then unleashed a
Yep.
shot, and Lindelof just wasn't quick enough to get
and
back
and
at him.
just total lack of aggression as well. It really hinders him, especially in this league.
Yeah, he's far too passive. Yeah,
Yeah,
was almost too nice to be a defender in the Premier League. I feel.
yeah.
You know, I was watching a clip online. You see a lot of retro stuff on Instagram and stuff, and it was a it was a game from like I think it was a 99-2000 season.
Oh,
And
in those days, Carl, he would have got bullied.
yeah, do you know
He
what the
would
clip
have
was?
got absolutely bullied.
It was Duncan Ferguson against Jaap Stam. It was a
Ah,
big,
yeah,
big
yeah,
physical
yeah,
tussle,
yeah,
and you're like, oh, Lindelof just would not belong in
yeah.
this era at all. Like,
Absolutely not. Yeah, imagine playing Everton then, right, with him, and you got Big Dunk and likes of Kevin Campbell. Everyone's physical. Yeah, wouldn't be able to deal with
yeah, although I think Big Drunken Duncan was playing for Newcastle on this occasion, but unsurprisingly, Jaap Stam held his own. But yeah, it was. I love the good old fashioned football. I love seeing that stuff.
it.
I kind of miss it really. Yeah. Do you know Harry Maguire has really turned it around this season? I have to give credit where it's due. I do. There was a point, earlier this season and in the two previous seasons where I was afraid of Harry Maguire coming onto the pitch,
Yeah,
even as a substitute, thinking he's all over the place mentally. He's going to make a mistake. But now I feel more confident when Maguire's comes on as a sub or even starts games. It's Lindelof that really worries me. Uh,
yeah. He's been a rock steady Eddie, hasn't he, Harry Maguire? When called upon, he's always fully fit. He comes on and he's done well.
you give him where he was at, the stick that he was getting, he's being lampooned at every
Yep.
ground that he went to. The Scotland fans were just cheering his every touch. Arsenal fans cheering him onto the pitch. United fans booing him in the USA and Australia and Ireland when he's coming on. And you're like, just imagine the impact that had on him mentally, and to come back from that and get his form back has been remarkable. Really, so
Yep.
kudos
I
to him.
think I think we discussed it before as well, Carl. I think not having the added pressure of the armbands probably helped him out. I think now, with the role that he plays, it's easier to palate than just as a out and out starter.
Yeah, and that brings me on to something that I was going to say earlier. And is it the curse of the captain's armband? Is that why Bruno has been so bad this season?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's the armband because even before that, I don't know. I thought it was a bit here, there, and everywhere, to be honest. And I always prefer my best players playing their best positions, and I don't like how Ten Hag usually just moves them about. Now, there's a counter argument to that would be that, oh, it's because that's his trusted lieutenant, so he can do a job. But I always prefer my best players.
Given his form and the fact that he turns 30 very early next season,
September he turns 30.
if we offered a big sum for him in the summer, would you consider it?
Yes. This might be a bit controversial, but yeah. Yeah, football is a business at the end of the day, and you have to look at the sustainability and all of that stuff. And yeah, this will probably be the last summer in which you can get a good return for him. So if there was an offer on the table, you should probably look to take it so that you can rebuild. with younger, and wage bill as well comes into it. Have to reduce that. So yeah, the high earners. If anybody comes in for the high earners and people are wrong side of 30 or approaching 30, then yeah, you got to look at it.
Yeah, you see with the PSR rules, I can see if a couple of surprising departures from United this summer. I think we might get big offers for a couple of our star names, let's say, and we might accept one or two of them. You know,
Yep, yep. And I think we already discussed like where I would start is Varane and Casemiro are where I would start the rebuild because not only are they wrong
absolutely.
side of 30, but the wages that just them two take up is ridiculous.
Yeah, and Varane injured once again. I think it was an impact injury. This
Yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah. Again, for him, it's the time's come. Maybe Saudi, maybe MLS.
You see with him, you see as soon as he picked up that knock, and it was about 5 minutes before half time, I knew he was coming off at
Yeah,
half time. Just knew it.
yeah,
How many times does he come off at half time as a precaution?
yeah. That's the
Mm.
thing, isn't it? Just yeah, I don't think he can hack it anymore at this level.
Yeah, he's just made out of glass, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a shame because on his day, fantastic, fantastic defender. But yeah,
And both centre backs got injured last night. I think Lindelof pulled his
yep.
hamstring. Um, so it's going to be a completely different pair probably against Chelsea. It'll be Maguire and Martinez, I think. The way things are going.
Mm.
Evans is still not back from injury. Who's done superbly well as a 35, 36 year old this season.
He's done brilliant, and that was one that me and you, well, I laughed at it when you mentioned it last summer, when we were linked to him, and yeah, no credit to him. And I'll tell you what, it's a shame if he's not back because he actually looks probably the most secure next to Harry.
Yeah, but unfortunately for Johnny, when Lecha is available, I don't see him starting because he's not going to play two left-footed centre backs.
No, yeah, yeah. With Leach, it's just the fitness issue, really, isn't it? And the
Although,
fact that it's going to take him a while to get back up to match speed.
yeah, it will take a few games, but
Yeah,
this thought had crossed my mind. Is there, with the lack of left back, is there an opportunity to play Evans at centre back and play Leach at left back in some games?
but he's capable of playing there.
Yeah, I don't see why not.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm not sure if Ten Hag would try it, but I mean, Leach can play there as well. I remember when Arsenal looked at him, I think they wanted him to play on the left. Um,
Arsenal love to play players out of position, or
yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
Arteta does. I mean, Ben White was a centre back at Brighton, and now he's a right back at Arsenal. Him and his permatan, and apparently he doesn't watch football. Would say apparently didn't go down well in some quarters.
No, it didn't. Yeah, I remember when they signed him as well, and they were asking about club legends and Patrick Vieira, and he didn't know much about Patrick Vieira.
Yeah. Yeah. There was. Do you remember the Spurs left back Dixon Akadu? I think his name was.
He
He
wasn't
said,
interested in football at all, was he?
yeah, he made it openly that he doesn't like football. He just seen it as a
Yeah,
job.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He just saw it as employment. I was like, oh, fair enough. I think because of our affinity to football, we see it as a dream kind of, don't we? So we expect these players to be just as invested as us, if not more. But yeah, honestly, that's the thing. Um, yeah, for some of these guys, it's really just a job.
To see if you feel that way, it's probably best to keep it to yourself because it's never going to go down well with supporters.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Or
Oh,
even you might.
you'll remember David Bentley, who came up at Arsenal, then played for Spurs.
Yeah, yeah,
He ended up retiring about 10 years ago when he was only like 29, 30. I
yeah.
don't even think he made it to 30. He might have been 29. I remember his last move. He went to Russia to play for Rostov, but then he abruptly retired and just admitted that, listen, yeah, I've just fallen out of love with the game. I could have, milked this for another couple of years, but no, I just wanted to stop.
Yeah, he was the first player to score a hat trick against Man United in the Premier League, I believe.
Really? Oh, wow. What is that?
Yeah, I remembered it well. I remember watching. Sky Sports News at the time and being very depressed. Um, it's for Blackburn Rovers. It was, yeah,
Yeah,
first
yeah.
hat. But
He looked very good for a little bit as well at Spurs, and Spurs paid big money for him at the time. I think it was about 15 million.
yeah, I remember him scoring in North London Derby. I think it was a really
Yeah,
good
yeah,
goal.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. But it takes a big person to admit that, though. Because I think his agent must have probably told him as well. Ah, David, just carry on for a few more years.
yeah, it's quite um impressive though from our point of view that the Premier League started in 1993 and nobody scored a hat trick against us until 2004.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
But everybody can score a hat trick against us nowadays. All the records are jumping.
Yeah, yeah. We're on the tail end of breaking all the records for the
We
wrong reasons these days.
we talk about the amount of defeats this season in all comps and even in the Premier League was I think it's been 11 in the Premier League and 16 in all
Yep,
comps.
yep.
But think of the amount of games where we've got away with it, like last night. That should have been a defeat.
Definitely, definitely.
You know, we've been so. Some of the
You
results
think
have
you
really.
think about the last minute winners, even the McTominay's popping up, and because I think Scotty's got us something like what he's won us what 8 to 9 points at least.
Maybe more than that.
Yeah, yeah,
But the thing is, if you're consistently not playing well, it's always going to catch up with you, and that's what happens with United. So when they get a big result against the rivals, Liverpool, they're just going to fall off again in
and
the
and
league.
I tell you what, the international break came at the wrong time after a result like that because that is a great momentum builder. That because that I mean, Kyle, you were there. I can only imagine how it was in the stadium. Um, I hadn't felt like that since probably PSG.
Yeah, the euphoria was just
Yeah,
off the charts, off the
it's
charts.
it's different, isn't it? Because yeah, I mean, my heart was racing. I don't think it went back down for a good couple of hours.
It's very unique to see a player get a red card and be applauded off by the other
Yes,
fans.
yes. I've never looked at it and said, you know what, that's well deserved.
Yeah,
Also, what a stupid rule as well. Surely, like common sense has to prevail. They need to get rid of that nonsense.
I think most of the fans were still celebrating whenever the red card was issued, and
Yeah.
I seen him walking towards the tunnel, and the fans around the tunnel were standing up to applaud him.
Mm.
And at that point, I just assumed he must have got a red. I didn't know, I didn't see it, but I just assumed.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Which obviously meant that he missed the game last night,
Yep.
which is unfortunate for him. But hopefully he gets an opportunity in the coming weeks, and not just. I'm not talking about 5 minute cameos, real
No, a
opportunities.
proper chance. Yeah, proper chance. Because he deserved that. Because that whole move, the fact that he's the one that won it back and started and finished it, was just brilliant.
And given that we've got forwards who are out of
Yeah.
form, he should be
Yeah,
given.
yeah. Cool, calm, and collected. Could you imagine if that was Rashi on the end of that? I would not have been confident at all.
No, sure, Rashford. I know he eventually scored in the game, but he missed 3 chances as well.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and like you mentioned earlier, like obviously one of them, it turned out he was offside, but it's still, you know, a disgrace that he missed.
yeah, but if we want to be fair to Rashford, he has an unbelievable record against the traditional top six teams.
Hmm.
He scored bucket loads of goals against the top teams. So we just want him to be more consistent, which he hasn't been this season. And I think a lot of it is to do with a lack of desire. There's something in him that's just switched off this season, and we're obviously most of us don't know what it is, and we'll find out in time. But this cannot go on beyond the season. He needs to get back to his 30 goal season next year. Not expecting 30 goals, but he needs to get back to the way he was playing
Yeah,
last season.
yeah.
So yes, player ratings as promised, which are going to be low.
Uh-oh.
One Onana probably United's best starter,
Yes,
which is a poor reflection.
he definitely earned his wages this week.
So we'll say 7 for Andre Onana. Um, Diogo Dallo, I'm going to say wasn't a great performance by him, and I think you'll agree with me that he's been overhyped by a lot of the fan base this season. They're getting a bit carried
Yes,
away with his
yes.
performances.
I think he's a good squad player,
Yeah, but he's
but nothing
yeah
more than that, ideally.
yeah he's not a Premier League winning right back, and I don't think he ever will be. And people might think that's harsh, but
I mean, you say that though. I mean, we've seen Danny Simpson lift the
that's
Premier League trophy.
yeah. But I mean, you could say that about a lot of the Leicester players in the squad, like Robert Huth.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
when you really break down that back five, like Jesus, they really did that with Christian Fuchs, Wes Morgan, and Robert Huth.
yeah, unbelievable. It's just a freak season, that really wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. All
But
the stars aligned.
normally the right back who wins the league is a top player. Um,
Yeah,
in the old days, it would have been a really good defender like Gary Neville or Lee Dixon. But nowadays, it's like Trent Alexander-Arnold or Kyle Walker. You
the
know,
the ones that bomb forward now, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Um, so Dallo a 5 yesterday. Victor Lindelof a 1. Varane subbed at half time. A 5 for Varane. Wan-Bissaka probably a 4, but obviously out of position. It's tough for him.
Yeah,
McTominay invisible, so I'll say a 2. Kobe Manu probably not his best game for Manchester United, but
it wasn't
it's
for anyone, was it?
not fair that we have to relying on an 18-year-old every single week now for
Yeah, that's the thing. And then at that age, you're gonna have up and down performances. It's part and parcel of the game.
yeah. So 5 for Manu. By the way, he's brilliant against Liverpool, unbelievable,
Yes,
and and for England obviously as well. So I think he'll be going to the Euros. Um, Bruno Fernandes, or however you pronounce it in Portuguese, just another diabolical performance, and we get a 1 out of 10. Um, Garnacho, unfortunately, not his day either. I think the only thing that really separates him from Rashford is that he works a lot harder. Even when he's having a
yeah,
bad day, he's trying. He's pressing the goalkeeper. He's getting back to help out his fullback. Whereas Rashford is not interested in doing that. So Garnacho will probably get a 3 out of 10. Marcus Rashford, I'm thinking I'm going to say a 1. And it was considered a 0, but it really was abysmal. Uh, Rasmus Hoyland, not much service, just
none,
had
next
one
to none.
one shot on goal, and whenever the name of the ball was played into him in the penalty area, he was just totally surrounded and outnumbered. And
He's overperforming as well. When you look at his conversion rate, it's actually ridiculous.
yeah, his conversion rate is really good, in comparison to
Yeah,
the number
yeah,
of shots that he's had.
yeah. Because people at first glance might look at it and think, "Oh, that's amazing," but it's really not. It's not a good thing. Um,
And unfortunately, I think that injury came at the wrong time because he was bang
it
in form at that.
did, yeah, yeah. It just messed up all momentum. And story of our season, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I just hope he can get that momentum back again. But
Yeah,
4 out of 10 for his performance. On the bench, which was emptied last night, using the full quota eventually. So Maguire, I would say a 6 for his second half performance. Unfortunately, Leach made a couple of mistakes, but
yeah.
I still think he's our best defender, and we'll get better with match fitness. We
Hmm.
saw this with him, in the at the start of the season when he didn't look right, and um, he made a few mistakes, didn't look himself. But see, when he came back there in January, he really looked
Yeah,
himself again.
very much
So
so. Yeah, that's what I mean. That's why I was hoping that we really take our time this time around. Because yeah, at the start of the season, he didn't look the same, and then when we saw him come back the last time, you could see the difference he makes in and out of the team.
yeah, but on last night, I would say a 5.
Yeah,
Casemiro and came on very late. He got the assist, by the way. I suppose at the but so I'll give him a six. Even we didn't play that long. Um, Although when you come on in the 80th minute nowadays, you're getting 20 minutes of football. um,
Yeah.
yeah. Anthony unfortunately didn't have the impact that he had against Liverpool. Scoring with his right foot. We have to mention that, by the way. We haven't had the chance to talk about that. That's just incredible, really.
It is.
uh, and I love the fact. I don't know if you listened to the most recent Overlap fans podcast, and the Liverpool fan that was on was saying about how absolutely devastated she was to lose to Man United because she absolutely despises United, and she can't believe they Liverpool allowed Anthony to score against them, and she hated the fact that it was United who destroyed their quadruple chances. She said had it been anybody else, they would be able to get over it, but it was a really tough couple of weeks, because United put them out of the FA Cup. But yeah, that
Uh,
was nice to hear that.
I look
Um,
forward to catching up on that. The last one I saw, I think it was the Ollie one. So it's been a few weeks. Been a few weeks. There's been fan
yeah,
debates. I think the latest one. I think Les Ferdinand is on. So yeah, I've got
yeah,
a
I saw
week
that
to
one as
catch up
well.
on.
Yeah, yeah, that was an interesting one too. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
they did a fan one on Friday, I think it was. Yeah, and it was the United fan was Jay Matty from Stratford Paddock. He's been
Hmm.
in the show a few times. Um, yeah, it's great to see Liverpool fans in pain after a result against United, which has been few and far between in recent years. Let's be honest. And so,
Definitely. And I'll tell you what, Les Ferdinand, another person that Lindelof would have cried about.
yeah, yeah, it
Uh,
would have
yeah,
been,
yeah. Proper aerial threat as well, Les.
it would have been bread and butter for Les Ferdinand against
Yeah,
Lindelof.
yeah, yeah.
So Anthony probably a five didn't really have much of an impact last night, to be honest. But Mason Mount, um, obviously scoring what should have been the winner on his first goal for United.
Yep.
So I will give him a seven for his 20-minute
Was
cameo.
very well taken as well.
And Eric Ten Hag, yeah, not a great night for the manager. Um, Massive issues in midfield again. Uh, and we've obviously discussed that he should probably be playing Wan-Bissaka and Dalot on different sides of the pitch,
Hmm.
and continues to play Bruno and Rashford despite their form. And he takes off Rashford eventually in games when he's not playing well, but he never takes off Bruno Fernandes, because he's a captain, which I don't agree with. So it would be, and that's by far probably. I've probably said it a few times this season, but that was probably the worst performance of the lot, and somehow we didn't
Yep.
lose. So probably a 1 out of 10 for our Ten Hag, who looks in serious trouble.
Is
And let's
that
pick.
is that 1 point for bringing Mason on?
Yeah, yeah, you called it. And that brings us on nicely to the second part, which is during this during the international break, there was heavy links to the England manager Gareth Southgate. Um, Now there's been links to Graham Potter before, and now Southgate, and and there are links there again with the new hierarchy. Um, Dan Ashworth has worked with Southgate before. Um, Dales Brailsford knows him as well. Um, and this, like I said in the show already, this seems to be a real Brexity approach from Ineos. Certainly, what the impression that we're getting. They do like to have you know homegrown people in senior roles at United. It seems like they're going that way. I mean, they've already appointed Dan Ashworth as director of football, even though there's not disagreeing with that. That's fair enough. But obviously, there are many foreign options out there as well. But yeah, so it wouldn't surprise me if they went down the route of an English manager. But my issue with that is I don't think any English manager is good enough to be Manchester United
That
manager
is also my issue. I don't mind a homegrown bias if the quality was out there, but that isn't there. I think people need to think back to Gareth Southgate's last club managerial job at Middlesbrough.
Hmm.
He's not qualified for any top job in club football. Obviously, he's been successful in comparison to previous managers with England. But when you really take a closer look and break down the fixtures and the teams that he's beaten and where he's fumbled, it doesn't make for great reading.
No, it does not. The last time he managed a club, he was relegated with Middlesbrough in
Yeah, yeah,
2009. Um, Now, you could make the argument that he's taken England to a new level that they haven't been used to since maybe Euro '96, and they've got to a final and a semi-final. Um, and England, even with the golden generation under Sven, they didn't get this far in tournaments when they should have. But he hasn't got over the line. They played a very average Italy team in the Euros final, which I felt that
yeah,
England should have won that game. Um, I mean, Italy haven't didn't qualify for either of the World Cups either side of that Euros, which tells a story in itself. Um,
yeah. It's a shell of the Italies that we grew up watching. Obviously, their midfield was quality, but apart from that, and England took the
and
lead so early on, and it's just his game
Luke Shaw,
management. Yeah, yeah, his game management. It was reminiscent of the Villarreal Europa League final and Oli. You know,
yeah,
it's
I
one
think
of those ones.
I think he's a very cautious coach as well, very
Yeah, yeah,
pragmatic.
yeah. Very pragmatic. But which isn't really what this England team needs, especially when you look at the amount of flair players they've got, the amount of attacking talent. So yeah, uh, he might.
Yeah, I may,
There is an
I,
argument to be made that he's holding them back.
yeah, I may be proved wrong in this. Well, for me, that England team should go and win the Euros, but I think that he might be the reason they don't.
Yeah, yeah. I would definitely say this England team should be in the mix. They should be looked at as one of the favourites. Obviously France, but England should definitely be there or thereabouts.
You know, and England against France in the World Cup. I think England were not outplayed in that game. They lost because of moments,
Yeah,
key moments.
yeah, yeah. And not taking your chances, and then when penalties can go either way, can't it? So it's one of those.
Yeah, and Harry Kane scores the vast majority of the penalties he takes
Yeah,
for his club,
yeah. 9 out of 10 times he's scoring. It's one of those things.
and then the England tournament disease hits him, and he blasts
Mm,
one into Rose
mm.
Ed,
Poor
just
guy.
like just like David Beckham against Portugal all those years ago. Um, yeah, that's that's my criticism of Gareth Southgate as well. That they've won a lot of knockout games in tournaments against teams they should be beating, but when they play
Exactly.
the elite teams, they come up
Yep.
short.
They do. This is the thing. So people blanketedly look at, oh, he got them, to a semi-final and a final. But you have to look at the journey in which they got there and the opposition they played.
Yeah, I mean, in 2018, when they got to the World Cup
Yeah.
semi-final,
The
they
fixtures really helped us out because
yeah
if we did
they,
what we're supposed to do in the group stage, we actually would have got the harder fixture in the
yeah they got
knockouts.
Colombia and Sweden,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and then lost to Croatia in extra time in the
yeah.
semis.
And then struggled to score an open play as well.
Yeah, actually went all the way to penalties against Colombia and finally won a
Yeah.
penalty shootout. But was that something else you could say that Gareth Southgate has got on his resume that he took England
Mhm.
to a penalty shootout victory? But that's probably been the only one. I think they obviously lost in penalties to Italy in the Euros final. In the Euros, okay, they beat Germany, but it was not a vintage Germany team by any
It
means.
wasn't a
Uh,
great Germany team. I think obviously we give them a lot of credit because of their history, but this Germany team, yeah, terrible.
although they might be slightly better in this tournament because they've got a lot of exciting young players. Germany now.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, the one at Leverkusen especially, Florian
yeah,
Wirtz. He looks to
and
be the next one.
yeah, and Musiala obviously at Bayern as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
Um, yeah, but the Germany
About the
team
only thing. Sorry, go on.
the Germany team in 2021 was their poorest for a long, long time.
Yeah, I was going to say about the only thing they are missing is an out and out striker. I can't think of many even
Mm.
upcoming Germans that are proper good strikers. They haven't
No,
had one in ages.
no Miroslav Klose these days.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, no. What a deadly player he was. Probably one of the best headerers of the ball I've seen.
and just like Podolski, he was Polish. Glory hunters playing for Germany. Um, yeah, I feel that in the biggest games, England are coming off from short.
Random fact about Lucas Podolski that I came across recently. He's in the kebab business.
Right, right. That was random.
Proper random. I just read about it recently. Apparently, he's like proper minted off his businesses, and yeah, selling kebabs. He's got many kebab shops.
Fair enough. It's like George Foreman and his grills.
Yeah,
He's
it's
like,
one of those ones. Yeah, because his they were saying I was very surprised by the amount of wealth he's accumulated through his kebab businesses. I was like, oh that's for him.
very, that is very random. You wouldn't associate a kebab business with a German Polish guy, but
No,
fair
you
enough.
wouldn't, would you? Yeah, yeah. Literally, like as as I came across the article, it was literally just him, just cutting a piece of doner meat with the big cleaver things. I was like, oh, okay,
Yeah, so it's smart to have a side project, I suppose.
very
But
much so.
he had an absolute wonderful left foot. But yeah, Germany are lacking out and out forwards at the moment.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, Southgate in the Euros again they got favourable draws. A bit Ukraine and Denmark and yeah, and then once they come up against Italy, and not a vintage Italy by any means, they come up short
nope.
in the penalty
Hmm.
shootout. And then once again the World Cup, get France in the quarters and go out. Um, obviously Kane missed a penalty, and then was it Harry Maguire and Giroud? Was there? I think did Giroud head the ball onto Maguire and it went in or something like that, or maybe it was the other way around. But it was those key moments where they lost the game.
Yeah,
Like the game was very even if I remember correctly, but the big moments went to France. I do also recall when Kane missed that penalty, Mbappe appeared to be laughing his head off, which is a bit disrespectful, really, a bit harsh, really, but a bit ruthless. That it might not have been that what he was laughing at. It might have been somebody else made a joke or something, but it did seem a bit ruthless. That like,
yeah. I
but
think that's one of those things, isn't it? I think the media will take that and run with it. Who knows? Who knows? He might have been laughing at something totally different.
yeah, could one of his teammates could have made a joke or something, and
Yeah, yeah. They might have just yelled something out. You know, you don't know.
uh, yeah. So back to Southgate. Even Gary Neville says as a fan, you get a feeling about a certain manager being right for
Yep,
your club, and Southgate just doesn't feel like he's the right man, and neither does
yep.
Graham Potter.
It's a
Um,
no from me. But I'll tell you what. Xabi Alonso's announced that he's staying at Leverkusen. So Gareth, if you want to come back to Premier League football, apply for the job at Liverpool, please.
I'm getting the sense at the moment that it's going to be De Zerbi taking over at Anfield. I'm just getting that feeling.
I think they're looking at the sporting manager as well, Ruben Amorim.
Yeah, do you know what I'm surprised at? For all the praise that he's got, he's only won one league title in Portugal, and that was
Yeah, yeah,
2021. 2021 is the last time he won a league
yeah,
title. I mean,
yeah.
you know, in order for you to stand out as a manager in the Portuguese league, you need to be dominating that league, and he's not doing that. So I don't understand what the hype's about, but no, fair enough. If they went for Omaran or De Zerbi, I would not be afraid of Liverpool. I think whatever they
Mm.
do now, it's going to be a step down from Jurgen
Yeah,
Klopp.
from Klopp, absolutely. Yeah. I think obviously they've got Edwards coming back, haven't they? So that would. probably helped them out somewhat in terms of the structure not completely collapsing.
Yeah, he's. I think he's got even more control than what he had before, Michael Edwards. He's
Yeah,
gonna.
yeah, yeah. Because that was somebody that we discussed before, right? Like reluctantly, even with the Liverpool history, I would have taken him at Old Trafford.
Yeah, we as fans think that the battle happens on the pitch between
Hmm.
Rashford and Trent, but the real battle is going to be between Ashworth and Michael Edwards. You know, that's
Yeah, yeah,
who can make the best signs and
yeah.
acquire
That's
the
the
best
thing. And then,
transfer.
yeah, that's the thing. And the thing is, all clubs have like a certain success rate with their signings, right? No one's gonna get it very, very high. Like, there's always gonna be failures, but it's how you mitigate that.
But it needs to be more than 7%, where because that's where it's been under Woodward. 7% success rate of signings.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
shocking.
That's the thing. That's the thing. And then how you distribute those funds as well, very important. I think what most impressed me with the work that Edwards did at Liverpool is that, well, I think obviously you have to look at Jurgen Klopp as well in this. Um, a lot of the players that they signed were not world class or even close to that on arrival. It was
Hmm.
all players that they then took to another level, mostly. Um,
Salah being an example of that. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, Salah, Mane as well. I mean, I wasn't frightened of either of them going there when they at the time that they went there. Um, the
no,
only ones that, sorry,
I'm not afraid to admit that whenever it was announced that Liverpool had signed Salah from Roma, I was like, so
yeah,
what?
yeah, yeah. Because listen, I remember seeing him the early days at Basel. I thought he was a bit of a talent, and then we had that little spell at Chelsea, and then moved on. I certainly didn't foresee him putting up the kind of numbers that he did at Liverpool and the level of consistency that came with it. Bobby Firmino as well. He was an attacking midfielder. We had links to him as well before he went there, but yeah, what he did with him, positional change and all of that. Yeah, phenomenal stuff. Um, Thiago is probably the only one that was certified who they signed, and I don't think that had anything to do with Edwards. um, Fabinho is the one that stands out for me. It's the one that got away.
Yeah, th- their hit rate is probably been around the 70% mark, and
Mm,
that should be our aim. Um,
hmm.
there's always going to be a Ballion or a Bebe and all that,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
you want
See, even people like Simicast are doing a job for them when called upon. When Robertson's not been at it, and Simicast was a
yeah.
cheap pickup that he brought in.
Yeah, I think it also helps when you come into a winning team, a team that's playing well as well. Do you see United when we're struggling and when a new guy comes into the team, it's it's difficult. You know, it's more challenging when you're coming into a team that's struggling.
Definitely, definitely. But then when you look at the team that Klopp took over, like how different it is compared to what you walked into with the likes of Adam Lallana and that.
Yeah, Nathaniel Klein and
Ricky
um,
Lambert, I think.
Martin Skirtle and
Yeah,
yeah, there was so many average players. Uh, yeah, that season where Brandon Rodgers was sacked, it was only a few weeks after Martial's debut, where he scored famously against Liverpool at Old Trafford, and I
yeah,
think Rodgers was sacked shortly after that. That Liverpool team was so average when you look at it now.
yeah. It was dreadful, dreadful team. Joe Allen and that.
Yeah, yeah, it was pretty poor.
Yeah,
And they turned it around, but we need to
hmm,
take a leaf out of their book. But we talked about this a year ago, 2 years ago, that we needed to have the proper structure in place, and we're
yeah,
doing that now. We're doing that now. So it's just going to take time, and we need to be patient.
yeah. That's all it is. That's all it is. I think, yeah. But for the first time in a long time, I'm actually looking forward to the summer just to see, just to get a glimpse of, what they might potentially have in mind.
Yeah,
I say this
yeah.
now,
I'm
what,
looking
this is going
forward
to
to
be
the
famous
sales as much
last.
as the incomings.
Yeah, yeah, that too. I'm looking forward to the departures and see how they shape it. We say this now, it's going to be very stressful by the time summer rolls around.
Yeah, you see, as soon as the last game of the season's over, you're
Same here.
refreshing your Twitter feed every 10 minutes to see what's
Yeah, that's
happening.
what it is. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I remember last time I was kind of excited as well. Oh, yeah, what's gonna happen? And then we had the Mason Mount stuff, and I was like, huh? What?
Yeah,
This doesn't
that
make
was a
sense.
really that was really random when it came out that United were interested in him. I didn't really
Yeah,
see
yeah.
that
Because
coming, to be
I
honest.
thought I saw him very much as more of a Klopp kind of signing, and also it baffled me because I just thought, yeah, we could get this guy for free next year if we really wanted him.
Yeah, but like you say, we now need to give him a chance ahead of
Oh,
Bruno. I think.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. He's got that number 7 shirt as well. You've got to back him.
Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully he can finish the season strongly. Um,
Yep.
but as I say, I don't think United will qualify for the Champions League. I think we'll be back on Thursday nights next season, playing
Yeah,
games in Moldova and
yeah.
Slovakia. Uh, and think that will get through Coventry, probably make it more difficult than it should be.
Mm.
Um, but I think we'll lose the final again, unfortunately. I just,
I'm just concentrating on getting to the final first. So once we're there, we can look at what opposition we're up against.
yeah, but maybe they'll, if we have our best team and they're up for it, who knows?
Listen, just think back to how we beat Liverpool.
Yeah, but I mean,
It
I
would
just,
have to be one of those kind of days.
yeah, but if you look during Ten Hag's tenure, the results we've got against Liverpool have been pretty good overall. There'd be one
Yeah.
defeat, two wins, and a draw. I know that the defeat was 7-0, but
Ah.
Ten Hag has a decent record against Klopp. Against Guardiola, not so much. Uh,
Hmm.
it's been mostly defeats. That one win at Old Trafford last season, but
And we won't mention the goal difference.
yeah, and they beat us 6-3 last season. They beat us the double overs this season. There's
Yeah.
an aggregate score of about 6-1, and they beat us in the cup final. So yeah, I think
Hmm.
City are more difficult for us to beat than Liverpool
Yeah.
for some
Fastest
reason. Yeah,
fastest goal ever conceded as well in a FA Cup final.
yeah. And who made the mistake there again? The guy we are talking
Ah.
about earlier, Victor Lindelof.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And Ericsson as well. Bless him.
yeah,
Just hasn't got a
yeah.
defensive bone in his body.
No, like a few others.
Yeah,
Too many others. So we
definitely.
shall wrap it up there. Please smash a like on the video, everybody. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you're watching or listening, and get more of your comments in, like Simon has. And I shall see you again, Brush.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully with 3 points the next time, but I'm not gonna hold my breath.
Yeah, definitely not going to hold my breath on that one.